Hey everyone. So, remember a couple weeks ago? It's going to be a month this Saturday. Remember a couple weeks ago when I did a video on what Triple H said, Paul Levesque, that is, what he said at the Royal Rumble press conference, post-show press conference. Remember what that video was, and I'll link it at the end here. But basically, in that video, I talked about how Triple H said in the press conference, because he was asked a question and everything about the reports from places like Fightful and Meltzer and PW Insider and all them, and his answer basically was that he could tell you honestly that nobody knows, that none of them know, as to what's going on, as to what pertains to what's happening in WWE. And I'm one to firmly believe that. I am one to firmly believe that. Because even though, yes, they have gotten some things right, here and there, a majority of what gets reported is not accurately true. It's not 100%, factuality. It's not. And I believe it. I believe it. I mean, look, I'm not discrediting Sean Ross Sapp or anybody else. I mean, they're just doing their job. They're going off of the information they get from people. Now, one thing I will give Sean Ross Sapp and his crew credit for over at Fightful is at least they are taking credibility or responsibility, to come out and say that, the people they talk to within WWE, are telling them that this is what they claim to have heard. That what they're getting told, the information they're getting told is what they have been claimed as to hearing. So in other words, even those that are given information to the likes of PW Insider and Fightful and all them, even they can't be 100% sure as to if the information they're hearing is correct. Because even those in WWE that are leaking out that information, probably don't even know if that information is true or not. And I don't blame them for feeling that way, because it's like, well, if you're going to report something and you want some kind of truth behind it, when you let someone like Fightful, like Sean Ross Sapp or Mike Johnson at PW Insider or whoever, when you want them to know what's happening, you want to make sure that the information you give them is 100% fact, or at least 75% fact, at most. You want to make sure it's 75% fact and not like a 50-50 or 45-50, where the 45 is less than fact and the 50% is you're unsure. You don't want that. You want to make sure that the information you give them, has some validity, has some truth. And, when I hear reports that only one person is speculating on things as to, certain things happening, certain matches taking place a lot sooner than they should, when I hear that, I take that with a grain of salt, and I think everybody else should. I was just watching a clip from PWU, Pro Wrestling Unlimited, and Tim, I think that's his name, Tim, and, he basically reported something that Alvarez talked about, because last night on NXT, we saw, a big show, very big show, very stacked show. We saw the return of the Hardys as TNA World Tag Team Champs. We saw the X Division title of TNA being defended for the first time outside of the company well, it has been defended outside the company on independence and all that, but we've never seen it defended on WWE programming or even AEW programming when they had that, brief partnership. So it was the first time it was defended outside of TNA on a bigger platform by Moose. So we saw that. We saw the in-ring debut of Ricky Saints and everything. So it was a very decent card. We saw Stephanie Vaquer successfully defend her championship, the North American Championship for the women. So it was a very productive card, but it was after Vaquer's victory that we got a stare down between her and Giulia. Vaquer, I think, issued a challenge, and out came Giulia, and Giulia accepted, and it's going to be title for title at, NXT ROADBLOCK at the theater in Madison Square Garden. Now, everybody pretty much hears this and they're like, well, why didn't you save this for Stand and Deliver, which is NXT's WrestleMania on WrestleMania weekend? And that is a good question. Why not save it till then? Well, apparently a report's going around according to Alvarez, and this is what, Tim, again, I think that's his name, Tim of Pro Wrestling Unlimited read off in his video clip that basically the reason the match is happening is that one of the champions, either Giulia or Vaquer, is injured. That's right. It's either Vaquer or Giulia, according to what Alvarez is saying, is potentially injured, as to why, as to reason we're getting the double title match at Roadblock at the theater at Madison Square Garden. Now, here's the thing. We've heard reports before about title for titles, right? We know that Moose and Obi Femi are going to face for the NXT Championship, and originally it was supposed to be for both the NXT Championship and the X Division Championship. And that still might happen, but right now it's for the NXT Championship. And, here's the thing. It was Wrestling Observer, I believe, or at least one of them, that reported potentially it was going to be title for title between them, but as of right now, it's only for the NXT title. The same with the Hardy Boys and Fraxium. Nathan Frazier and A-Kid, or Axiom, I should say. Nathan Frazier and Axiom and the Hardy, going up against the Hardy Boys. Rumors were we were going to get, title for title with that. But instead, it's going to be for the TNA World Tag Team titles. And that's going to be a first as well, because the TNA Championships, or the TNA Tag Team titles, are going to be defended on WWE soil, if you will, for the first time ever. But, again, we had heard rumors that too would be title for title, and it's not. So when I hear, a report like this from Bryan Alvarez, being read off by someone that I actually respect and enjoy watching, I wouldn't have subscribed to the channel to support them if I didn't, in Pro Wrestling Unlimited. When I hear them read this off, and even they kind of like, you could see it, because this is just my opinion, but you could see it in their face, in their expressional face. You could see it, in their face, that even as they're reading and speculating as to who could be the injured woman between the two champions, even they find it hard to believe that there's any truth and validity to that. Because if Giulia was hurt, you wouldn't have had her beat Roxanne clean. If Vaquer was hurt, you wouldn't have had her beat Phelan Henley clean. So to me, I don't think there's any validity to it till we hear from the actual women themselves. Because again, remember what Triple H said. None of these inside sources know anything. They know nothing. And F4W Online, Wrestling Observer, has not been pitching a shutout as of late. As a matter of fact, they've been giving up Grand Slam after Grand Slam, walk-off after walk-off, over and over again. Whether it's Meltzer, more so than probably Alvarez, or it's Alvarez as well. So I look at it like this. If there is truth to it, you need to do an angle after the match. You need to do an angle after the match where basically the one that's injured gets attacked by either the other woman, by, thus turning her heel, or by maybe fatal influence attacking the other woman who lost. That way you write them off, at least until Stand and Deliver or whatever. But again, I just don't believe, I just don't believe a word as to what Alvarez is saying. Because again, they are basically pitching, they are not pitching a shutout. They have been giving up more home runs and grand slams and walk-offs more so than they should. So I'm not taking anything they say, seriously. I'm taking what they say with a very, very, very gigantic Titan-sized grain of salt. That's what I'm doing. Because again, you got to remember what Triple H said in the post-conference. Nobody knows. None of them know. And if he's coming out in a post-conference and saying none of them know, and then you have people like The Rock pretty much saying what he did on the NXT after the Raw on Netflix, and then kind of confirming that on the post-conference after SmackDown on Friday, you know, you have all these people saying something similar, especially two of the most legendary talents, you know, in the business, you know, who basically got trained and grew up in the business. When you have them, or being married into it, I should say, when you have them coming out and saying, hey, whatever you're hearing from these people, don't believe it, then I think you could trust their word over anything else. And I also want people to realize this too. NXT is going to Madison Square Garden. Okay? They're going to Madison Square Garden. It'll be around the same time I think Raw on Netflix will be at Madison Square Garden. So you got to realize this. It's Madison Square Garden. It's not the actual it's not the actual arena itself, but it's the theater in Madison Square Garden where wrestling has happened before. WCW, you know, back in its heyday, you know, back before Hogan came around and all that, they performed at the theater in Madison Square Garden. Other promotions have done that. The venue is Sacred Ground, the actual arena where the Knicks and the Islanders play. You know, that's actual sacred WWE ground, or it was, until like several years ago when the OG Ring of Honor and New Japan had their G1 Supercard. They were able to make that happen. But outside of that, majority of the time it has been sacred WWE ground. So again, you got to look at the fact that it is in Madison Square Garden, or at least in the theater. And knowing WWE, and this is the first time NXT's ever been there, of course they're going to want to make a big show out of it. So I think that's the reason we're getting Giulia and Stephanie Vaquer, because you can't have a bigger women's match in the theater at MSG than that. And also, it's going to be 2 years from the day, you know, that they last met one-on-one in New Japan Strong. So to me, they're doing it because of that, but they're also doing it because it's NXT's debut at Madison Square Garden, you know, at the theater portion of it, and they want to go big. They want to go big. It's not because someone's injured or anything like that. They want to go big. So again, remember what Triple H said. None of the people that report this stuff, none of these insiders, Fightful, Wrestling Observer, all of them, none of them know what they're talking about because none of them have a clue. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Comment down below, like the video, you know, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, do all the things in the description. You know, follow me on all your favorite audio podcast affiliates. Follow me on Facebook, not Facebook, follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, and TikTok. Check out the Teespring store. And until next time, guys, I will talk to you later. But give me your thoughts. Do you believe a word that Alvarez says, or do you think he's just observing and guessing? Let me know.